Good evening, everyone, and you're very welcome to our webinar tonight. The webinar has just started, 7:30 p.m., and the topic of the webinar is effective reporting on physical education within wellbeing. There's been huge interest in this webinar with over 513 people registering. So I do hope that the next hour is very worthwhile for you all. So I will be your host for tonight's webinar. My name is Michael Carey. I'm the physical education teacher in Glanmire Community College, but for the last number of years, I've been seconded to Junior Cycle for Teachers. So I'm overseeing this CPD for PE teachers as part of the implementation of the framework for Junior Cycle. I'm delighted to be joined tonight from Wicklow, Dublin, by Sinead McHugh, who's a teacher in Loreto Secondary School in Bray. She's an associate advisor with JCT, and I'm also delighted to be joined from Wexford, from David Gannon, who's a teacher in Manskull Gorman in Escorty. He's also an associate advisor. So Sinead and David both work in a part-time capacity with JCT, and you may well have met them along the road. Just to give a quick nod, I want to thank you for attending and for engaging so much in the cluster CPD and the second subject CPD that we've been running since 2000 and the end of 2016. So here you see a range of the associates that you might have met along the way. Some of the names might be familiar to you based on the geographic location. And of course, our previous team members, and I'd like to thank them for their contribution over a while. It's notable that two of these previous team members are now in school leadership in various schools, and a number of them are involved in the executive of the Physical Education Association of Ireland. And I'd like to thank the Physical Education Association for publicising this webinar and ensuring that their members are kept up to date. So thank you very much for that. So on today's webinar, you've got a navigation pane, and you should be able to see to the right of your screen. The orange toggle button that can move it in and out should be quite helpful for you. There are 3 handouts available, and we'll be navigating to these handouts during the webinar. You may also have received them via email earlier today, and it was great to see so many people engaging with it ahead of time. So we'll be looking at the handouts, over the course of the event. And also David and Sinead are on hand to answer any specific questions you might have or any comments you might have. So please just enter it there in the questions area of the interface. So for the next hour, what we hope to look at is we're going to consider how learning is captured and reported on in physical education. So looking at how the students' evidence of learning is captured and how we can report on it in physical education, both in an ongoing and in the summative forms. We'll look at the deep connection between teaching, learning, assessment and reporting in physical education. And we'll even look at how giving careful consideration to assessment and reporting can enhance the type of learning that students have in the classroom. And we have 10 samples of reporting practice in PE. We're going to view 4 of them during tonight's webinar. So I hope that practical interactive nature of the webinar will be of benefit to you. So that sets the scene for the next hour. Why is it important to explore reporting in physical education? Why is it so topical at the moment? Well, there's a few reasons for that. When we've worked with teachers across the country over the last 4 years, a lot of the work that teachers have been engaging in is reviewing their assessment and reporting practice, considering planning using learning outcomes, and considering how assessment and reporting might build on that. And in many schools at the moment across the country, part of their school self-evaluation focus is looking at effective feedback and is looking at effective reporting. So it's building on the work that is happening in many schools across the country, and that might relate to yours. Secondly, the last number of years, especially in the publication of the reporting guidelines and in the changing dynamic that is the junior cycle profile of achievement. It's a profile which is changing year on year as more subjects and short courses and well-being are being implemented in school. It's very timely that we as PE teachers look at reporting in the context of these two documents. And of course, all of these are within the context of the introduction of the framework for junior cycle and indeed the wellbeing guidelines and the physical education short course. Reporting at junior cycle generally, even looking at the larger lens besides physical education, the approach to reporting is hopefully going to be of more benefit to students because it engages them in the process. It charts their progress they're making, and it actively involves them and their parents in reflection on and the discussion of learning progress. So the overarching approach to reporting will hopefully be of much more benefit to students as it might have been heretofore, and it also actively involves them. It will value teacher judgments, and especially in the consideration of classroom-based assessments, our ongoing skills and knowledge-based assessments, it values teacher judgment in that, and it links back clearly to learning, teaching, and formative feedback in the classrooms. So reporting is a very immediate and a very relevant and meaningful process in classrooms. Planning for assessment and reporting can't be done retrospectively. It has to be in our thoughts from the start. So planning for assessment and reporting as part of planning for teaching and learning is much more likely to achieve alignment between how we teach and how we report on student progress. So giving consideration like we are today in terms of how we assess and report on student learning will lead to much more alignment. So it's important to plan for assessment and reporting from the start. The NCCA published, I've mentioned this document at the very start, the reporting guidelines. They issued them in March of 2018. One of the most helpful things within that document are 8 principles of effective reporting. So essentially it sets out what effective reporting should do. This was gathered from work with 13 schools nationally. And the principles that these schools, following the consultation, came to are here. Effective reporting must encourage authentic engagement with parents. It must provide opportunities for students through feedback to reflect on their learning. So you can see the student being activated in terms of reporting. And then the first one, if reporting doesn't engage with parents, then essentially the messages and the communication is not effective. It should value the professional judgment of teachers. And probably when we think of the summative document at junior cycle before, the junior certificate, all of the judgments there were made by the State Examinations Commission, and there wasn't that valuing of professional judgment like there is on the new junior cycle profile of achievement. But equally it values professional judgment in the classroom. It uses the language of learning to provide effective feedback, the language of formative assessment, and also descriptors supporting feedback. It should be manageable and not take away time from teaching and learning. And this is one of the most important ones. It needs to be streamlined with our practices in the classroom. So it must be really manageable, and it must clearly communicate student progress and learning. The last two, it must provide information on a broad range of achievements, how the student is doing both personally and academically within the school environment. Sometimes the language of the key skills and the wellbeing indicators are a nice scaffold in this. And I think the last thing is it needs to be flexible. It needs to be sensitive to the self-esteem and general well-being of students and take an inclusive approach. So as you read down through these 8 principles of effective reporting, just keep in mind we'll be coming back to these as we consider some snapshots or some samples of reporting in PE over the hour. So the NCCA reporting guidelines have provided a nice criteria by which we can critique or consider how effective our means of reporting are. From a more global point of view, or from a national point of view, looking at our schools quality framework outlines what effective teaching and learning and what effective practice is in within our schools. And you would have seen that over your whole school days and within your physical education days, that when we look at quality in schools, we think about it in terms of the learner outcomes, the learner experiences, teachers' individual practice, and teachers' collective and collaborative practice. And the way to enhance the outcomes and experiences is what teachers do in terms of how we work individually, but probably more importantly, how we work collectively and collaboratively. Just some key points with regard to reporting and why it's important for PE teachers to look at it in the context of looking at our schools are highlighted here. So when we look at the learner experiences, it's expected that statements of effective practice and highly effective practice look at students being actively involved, where they're being able to report on, present, and explain the processes and outcomes of learning activities to a competent level. So that's effective practice within PE class. And when we look at highly effective practice, students are able to do that to a highly competent level. So this gives us a nice framework by which we can look to develop our practice. Equally in learner experiences, there's a statement which states that students should assess their progress and are aware of their strengths and areas for developments. And again, as we move to highly effective, you can see that that has become a bit more refined. They can assess the progress realistically and can describe their strengths and areas for development as learners. And when we look at teachers' individual practice, it's quite important that teachers maintain assessment records that are clear, useful, and easy to interpret and share. And I think when we think about this in the context of the principles of effective reporting, I'd nearly add manageable to that as well. So teachers maintain assessment records that are manageable for the teacher and for the students, but that are clear, useful, and easy to interpret and share. And then when we look at highly effective practice, they might be tailored to the student's individual learning needs. So we're really looking at why a close focus on reporting is important at this time for PE teachers. And we looked at it there in the context of looking at our schools. So we're going to do our first interactive piece of the evening. We're going to explore our current practice. So our first activity is going to consider the question, how do we currently report on student learning within physical education throughout junior cycle? So the best way to engage in this, because we'll be engaging on a Padlet wall, is to look to the documents to the right-hand side of your screen. And there's a document called Please Open Me. So I might ask you to access that document just now. So it's to the right hand of the screen. If it's not visible, please click on the orange icon at the top and it will allow you to see the handout. And the one we're looking at is the PDF, Please Open Me. When you've opened that document, you should see, excuse me, here we go. When you've opened that document, you should see activity number 1 at the top with a question. How do you currently report on student learning within Wellbeing? If you click on the blue icon, it will take you directly to a Padlet wall. And I might ask you to fill in your responses on the first column of that Padlet wall. And I'm going to navigate to it just now. So on the Padlet wall, you can see activity 1. In order to put your own answer here, just click on the plus icon just below the activity 1. So it's looking at how do you currently report on student learning within physical education. There are many student teachers engaging in the webinar tonight. As a student teacher, if you do wish to scroll down, because you can scroll, if you go directly to the right of column 1, you will see a scrolling arrow, as I'm holding there, which can take you up and down the screen. And we might look to a number of the reports as they come in, and they're coming in fast and furious here. This wall will be available to view after the event as well. So there's a huge opportunity for you to reflect and to return to this. because I've no doubt that there will be many fantastic ideas and responses here to the various interactive pieces. So I'm looking at one that's just coming in at the moment. So the way that they currently report in this particular school, and I'm just seeing, is there a name attached here? Effort in class, participation level over the terms, and there's a self-rating piece where students rate themselves out of 5 at the end of each class. So it's very much looking at effort and participation in learning in this particular school. Looking to the next one, use own report, so that's very school specific, parent-teacher meetings, positive affirmation, phone call where possible regarding behaviour and best participation. So it's good to see this school are reporting in terms of positive and challenging behaviour and participation in it. And looking at this, this particular one, it's end of term reporting. So it's very much in the summative piece here. This particular school, parent-teacher meetings, term reports, mini projects. And GMQ4, gee, I don't know your first name, so my apologies, looks very closely at parent-teacher meetings, term reports, and student booklets. Okay, so the student is becoming quite actively involved here in terms of the booklet. And student reflections, term reports, and parent-teacher meetings. So with each of these comments, you know, maybe later or over the next number of days, you can have a scan through, because there could be something here that could be quite helpful for you. So that was activity 1, and that's there for us to access as well. So I see that a number of questions have come to the fore as well. I might look, I might just take some feedback there from, excuse me, I'll just scroll back to our presentation, and you can do so as well. So yeah, just one of the questions that has come in here that's been reported to me. Thank you, Sinead. One of the questions that has just come in from the floor is physical education, is it going to appear on the junior cycle profile of achievement this year for students regardless of whether they've undertaken the classroom-based assessment or not? Will you explain the detail around this? So very well posed question. The answer there, and thanks Sinead for completing this as in real time. Yes, physical education will appear on the JCPA, the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement, for all of our current third years, and full detail on this is coming later in the presentation. So I hope that that meets the questions, and feel free to engage with that questions pane just on your navigation bar on the right hand side of the screen. So we're going to have a look at a number of 2 schools. First of all, we'll look at how a sample of PE teachers report on student learning within PE in their school, and we'll examine the strengths of the approach and how it might apply in your own school context. So we'll look at the first school, and I might read it through, because School A here, School A asked students to keep a personal record book, and it was quite clear that this was evident in some of the existing practice we saw there in question 1, in activity 1, from your feedback. The record book is called the Physical Education Booklet. This school has several student templates to support student learning within class, but also to help students reflect after class. So it's used within class, and it's also used after class. The booklet stays with them for the 3 years, and parents are asked to view and sign aspects of the booklet over the course of this time. And the school used the booklet as a means of reporting on the learning that has happened in class. So as well as participation and effort, there's a strong focus here on reporting on the learning that's happened in class. So I mentioned that the reporting guidelines and the principles of effective reporting are a very good mechanism to critique this. So when we look to the principles of effective reporting, which again come from the reporting guidelines, it's very clear that by using the booklet, this school encouraged authentic engagement with parents, because they asked the parent to sign and to engage or view the booklet from time to time. And it's clear that it also provides opportunities for students to reflect on their learning. You know, it was used during and after class. And I think the fact that it's personalized, every student has their own booklet, it's sensitive to the needs of the student. So in terms of students that might be very strong at literacy, they've got the ability to complete their booklet to their own strengths. And equally, the student that might have particular learning needs has the ability to complete aspects of it. And I think that comes down to probably the design that the school undertake as well. So I've looked at what the strongest aspects of this report might be. Hopefully the middle part there, it can be manageable and not take away time from teaching and learning. I think that this school might actually make it enhance teaching and learning, because it gives the opportunity for students to engage and use it during class time and make that class time even more effective. So I'm going to ask you to engage with this piece now by navigating again to the document. Please, it's the same document. So for those that might have just joined the webinar, you can access this on the right-hand pane of your screen. But it's going to look at School 1, and the question that you're asked to provide feedback to is, what might you do differently to suit the context of your school? So this school are using a booklet. How might, or what could you do differently or similarly to suit the context of your school? So I'm going to ask you to navigate to the Padlet page, and column 2, activity 2 on column 2 is where we might put in our responses here. And we'll spend some time in just in looking through that. And it's clear that we're completed here. Adrian Barrett, thanks for joining us and taking part. Martina Finneran. So I'm looking at one particular school here that uses Microsoft Notebook. So it's clear that their booklet is an online version. And I think just in the context of our current national emergency, I think we're seeing that the online space can be used very effectively to support student learning. So this school uses Microsoft Notebook. They need to find a way for more parental involvement. And sometimes for this teacher, sometimes it's the simple things. By asking parents to engage in it or to view it from time to time can be very helpful. And like the idea of a reflection sheet. Great, pre-parent teacher meeting, very good. So I think I'm even predictive text here is what I'm doing. Student records, booklets could be kept in a drive, etc., as we are an iPad school. So some schools have a strong infrastructure to use this. However, I think the key thing to keep in mind there is let's make it public. Let's allow parents and students to access it, and let's make it as visible as possible. Sometimes keep in mind that the records and booklets, a paper document can quite easily become be stored in a visual archive. So there's a balance between both as well. So that's great. Group work, peer learning presentations, portfolio along practical aspects. So it's clear that there's quite a lot of strong learning in this area. This school here, keep a portfolio, including parents for signatures would be a good addition. And again, it's a small addition. So that's really helpful, and it's good to see that that's how you would apply it in there. Andy Goff, thank you very much for your comment. Lost booklets would be a problem in my school. We would try to do it online, though we don't currently have sufficient IT resources for that. In our particular school, in our context, because we only meet students once a week, if students were ever taking their booklet home on a night, we would ask that the class captain, or the class captain was how we referred to it in our school, would collect the booklets from the class the following morning. So it meant that, as opposed to the booklet being out of their hands or out of the school for 7 days, it meant that it was just an overnight. So it kept things very focused. So in any GOFs, maybe that could be a suggestion. If anybody else has suggestions for Andy there, you could add a comment to his particular comment as well. So guys, that's activity 2. I would ask you after today's session to engage in it. And I think you might be able to predict we will be moving to activity 3 in a minute and engaging with this Padlet wall in just a second again. So I'm just going to navigate back to our presentation. So that was our activity 2. For our second school, School B, they look at this school felt that the parent-teacher meeting was the primary source of reporting in physical education in our school. So the students attend with their parents. So in this context, it's a parent-student-teacher meeting. 5 years ago, parents did not really visit the physical education teacher. However, as a department, we wanted to increase this engagement, but also show the rich learning that takes place. So in terms of the principles of effective reporting, they really wanted to engage participation or increase engagement with parents. So in the week ahead of the parent-teacher meeting, the student answers key questions about their learning in physical education. They do a quick reflection. And during the meeting, the student reports on this, and the teacher then provides brief, specific feedback on the student work. So I like what the teacher is doing here. Instead of the teacher being hoarse after speaking to all of the parents, the student does a lot of the talking during that meeting and reports on their own learning, which is an interesting approach. So looking at this approach in School B, again, I'm going to look at it and critique it maybe using the principles of effective reporting. So again, just like the first one, this encourages authentic engagement with parents, obviously, and it provides opportunity for students through feedback to reflect on their learning. The parent-teacher meeting, if the student hadn't engaged in reflection beforehand, they would have missed out on a lovely opportunity to meet the needs of the second principle there. The student might not have engaged in reflection at all or considered how they were getting on and in their progress in class. And then it clearly communicates student progress and learning because it's a rich face-to-face discussion with the student involved. It provides information on a broad range of achievement. And again, because it's intimate to the student or very specific to the student, it can be very sensitive to their self-esteem and their general well-being. So again, we're using the reporting guidelines as a means of critiquing our practice. So I might ask you, and this is our last one for a while here, what might you do differently to suit the context of your school with regard to parent-teacher meetings? So again, I might ask you to return to that Padlet page. For anyone that's joined the presentation slightly late, you can access the Padlet page by using the interface on the right-hand side of your screen. Click on the aptly named Please Open Me document and look down to Activity 3. And in that you can engage with it. And we're going to answer this on the third column under Activity 3. And I'm just going to navigate to that page now as well. So straight away, one school have come here with an online option in Google Classroom. So it's an interesting approach, especially if you have the opportunity to use technology during the parent-teacher meeting. Good, so I'm just going to scroll down to some of the completed ones. Yeah, one school here, our students don't attend meetings. So it will be interesting, just as this comment is finished off, to see what this particular school undertake. We might come back to that one. Okay, so it's schools here, this particular school, we've started asking students to come into parent-teacher meetings. So there's probably potential in this school to look at this approach, having reflection before or even reflection after. Aaron O'Donnell, thank you, Aaron. We're currently looking at adding P. Aaron, I can't read your mind, Aaron. You're going to have to finish that comment. I might come back to that as well. Very good. Teacher backs up documents in case the student is unorganized. Very good. Try to do by filling out Microsoft form to help get the parent involved and understand the process. So again, I think there's a strong link between the practice in Activity 2 in terms of having the booklet and Activity 3 in terms of engaging the student in the process. Barry Upton, thank you. Barry, I think if you look even more basic at teaching and learning within physical education, instead of focusing, and I think as we looked at that, Barry, it could be instead of focusing on the summative pieces, I think the type of reporting might be within the teaching and learning within physical education. So I might just come back to that again if I can. Okay. Yes, this school here must be a written booklet as we've no Wi-Fi in the hall or enough IT equipment. And I think, strong feedback for this school. I just don't know what teacher it is, but let's try to get Wi-Fi in the hall. Let's see, can we access that? Because not only would it support us in our teaching and learning, but it would also support us during parent-teacher meetings potentially. So I might just go back to see are there some of the comments that have been updated there. So bring student reflection to parent-teacher meeting. Ah, good, Barry. Yes, just reflection on that. I think if you look even more basic at teaching and learning within physical education, instead of focusing on feedback based around targeting a meeting, if there's a good foundation within a class and students are engaged in undertaking relevant material specific to them, they will be talking about physical education more naturally. Barry, I totally agree, Barry. That's very insightful, because unless we've engaged students in reflection from day one and in meaningful and engaging assessment and reporting within the classroom, you're right, they don't have any foundation by which to undertake it. So Barry, thank you for that. I'm delighted I came across your comment. Try to do so by filling out Microsoft Forms to help to get parents involved and understand the process. And just scroll up one more here. A great idea, but in our school, the turnout for parents is low at parent-teacher meetings. So using only parent-teacher meetings for reflection wouldn't work. Trying to get online would be fantastic. So that's a very honest and a very insightful one from that school. Thank you. It would be interesting. The reporting guidelines provide suggestions of how to further engage with parents as well. So that could be focused either within your department or within the school. So thank you very much. I don't have the name of the teacher that contributed that, but I really appreciate it. And just to go back to Aaron's comment here, as I promised, we're currently looking at adding pupils to the meetings. We'll get them to bring their booklets to the meeting. So Aaron clearly sees a link between activity 2, or school A, the practice with the booklets, and school B and their practice with parent-teacher meetings. So guys, thank you very much. I wish I had time to get to them all, but we might have a more focused webinar on one aspect at a later stage if that's what the demand is. I'm just going to navigate back to our presentation, and we're moving away from our student examples for the moment, or from our school examples for the moment. And just to wrap it up, I think this builds very much on, I think it was Barry Upton mentioned here, really we have to have a strong foundation of formative assessment within our class, because the 2 examples of reporting in the school focus very much on students reflecting on their learning, both through use of the booklet and ahead of the parent-teacher meeting, and also the use of formative feedback, really meaningful feedback, because there's no point in having students reflect if there isn't a level of engagement either with other students or with the teacher afterwards. So think about manageable ways to do that. So thanks for your contribution in that. We're moving to the second part of our presentation, which is going to look closely at the reporting guidelines as a support to PE teachers, but also looking very closely at the evolving junior cycle profile of achievement and how physical education will be reported as part of wellbeing. So looking first and foremost at the reporting guidelines. I've mentioned this before, but I want to reiterate it. We can't plan for assessment and reporting retrospectively. It has to be done from the start as part of planning for teaching and learning, because that brings about alignment. So it's very clear that the reporting guidelines and this webinar have this as a very strong message. This is building on Barry's comment earlier. Reporting in junior cycle, it stems from the informal to the formal, to what happens in class, to the very final written report. So reporting in junior cycle is very encompassing. It takes various forms, which might include informal oral feedback in class, parent-teacher meetings, learning logs and diaries, which is an example of what the student logbook is, or the student booklet as we called it earlier, as well as the more formal one, formal end-of-term reports, end-of-topic reports, all the way to the junior cycle profile of achievement. So reporting is very broad. In whatever form is used, effective reporting is an important part of the assessment process, and it provides rich feedback to support learning. So really any form of rich feedback that supports student learning is effective reporting. And looking at those 2, like there could be very rich feedback within the informal oral feedback in class. Sometimes it's even more effective than what could ever be expressed on a written end of term report or a summative report. So the reporting guidelines, it really gives us a good roadmap by which we can consider our reporting in a school. We've mentioned before, of course, that the principles of effective reporting are in it. So it envisage that throughout the 3 years of junior cycle, oral and written feedback to parents and guardians and students is essential in supporting the student to build on their strengths and address areas where learning can improve. So this really gives the nod to involving students very much in the reporting process. And this is the link to the junior cycle profile of achievement. So linking classroom assessment, such as classroom-based assessments and other assessment moments within a new system of reporting that culminates in the awarding of the junior cycle profile of achievement will offer parents and guardians a clear and broad picture of their child's learning journey over the 3 years of junior cycle. So this final paragraph, it wasn't in place up to now, because all that appeared in the junior cycle of profile of achievement was very much the terminal exam or a terminal project that might have happened in third year. This new system tries to capture snapshots from across second year and third year. And that applies not only in physical education, but also in your other teaching subjects as well, as classroom-based assessments and other learning experiences are being introduced. So that brings us to the second piece of our middle part of the presentation. It's going to look closely at reporting on physical education as part of wellbeing on the junior cycle profile of achievement. So there are 4 curricular options for PE at junior cycle. I'll show them and then I'll talk through them. We have the physical education short course, which was developed by the NCCA with its associated assessment guidelines. There's the option for school designed short courses in physical education, and the NCCA provide templates and guidelines and can provide feedback during the development of that short course as well. The wellbeing guidelines state that schools can decide, as opposed to the 2 short course options, undertake a school design program, modules or units for physical education, usually Appendix I within the wellbeing guidelines. And of course, before the introduction of the framework for junior cycle, all schools were using the junior cycle syllabus for physical education from 2003, which is a really strong document which maps out the learning in what were the existing 7 strands in that particular document. So they're the 4 curricular options. Each offer different approaches when we consider the junior cycle profile of achievement. But a key message is that all schools, for whatever option you are taking, must consider how you're allowing students to show their evidence of learning, how you're going to involve them in both ongoing and summative assessment activities, and how you might report on PE on the junior cycle profile of achievement. We now have a right to profile PE, but with that comes a responsibility to give it careful consideration. So looking at the 3-year plan, a sample 3-year plan from a particular school, they're giving a lot of consideration to what assessment moments and how ongoing assessment might support students across first year. But they're also considering when are the key moments that we might engage with parents at Christmas, at parent-teacher meetings, or at summer reports, and equally throughout second year and third year. And this school are considering how they might allow physical education to be profiled on that summative document, on the junior cycle profile of achievement. So looking at PE as part of wellbeing. Since 2017, PE, along with SPHE and CSP, have formed part of the wellbeing area of learning within schools. Reporting on student learning in wellbeing, it's a 400-hour program, so schools and teachers have an obligation to report on student learning and wellbeing because it's now a key feature of the junior cycle. And as I mentioned, we need to consider how we do it in the ongoing throughout the 3 years, but also at the end of the 3 years, or at the end of each year of the 3 years. And because wellbeing commenced in 2017, the first years that began that year are now in third year, and they're completing their wellbeing program this June. So from 2020, to reflect their engagement in the wellbeing program, the junior cycle profile of achievement will be designed to allow for learning within wellbeing to be reported on for the very first time. So the JCPA up to now has recorded student achievement in, and we're going to talk through the various areas here, and I hope that everybody has seen a profile up to now. It's recorded achievement in the state certified examinations. And back in year dot, when I undertook the junior certificate, this was the only information that was provided on my summative report. It provides currently, up to now, it provides information in classroom-based assessments, in subjects, or in short courses. And again, that's using the descriptors, as we have seen across those various classroom-based assessments, and in other areas of learning. So the opportunity for students to report on aspects of their own engagement and participation in learning. And it's not shown on this particular profile of achievement, but profiles can also report on the learning for students that might have followed a level 2 learning program. And this is these are students that have particular special educational needs. But in this context, we're looking very much at the level 3 profile. However, from 2020, the JCPA will record all of those aspects, but also it will record learning in the area of well-being. So very closely here, underneath what we saw previously, underneath classroom-based assessments and short courses, the well-being short courses will be documented. So CSPE, SPHE and PE will be reported upon, as well as other areas of well-being. So there will be a free text box for schools to report on other areas of well-being. And we'll look at those two particular pieces just now. So in terms of the classroom-based assessments, as we mentioned there, for all schools as a default, the 3 well-being related short courses will appear, CSPE, SPHE and PE. So it will appear for all students as a default. If the student has studied the short course in physical education and has undertaken classroom-based assessment, they will have a descriptor awarded under JCPA by the school, exceptional, above expectation, in line with expectation, or yet to meet expectation. So if they've undertaken the classroom-based assessment within the short course, they will have the descriptor awarded. If the student has not studied the short course in physical education, because they haven't undertaken its associated classroom-based assessment, the school aren't in a position to report on it. So they will have reported and entered on their junior cycle of profile of achievement, not reported. So for those schools that have not offered the short course for their current third years, that's how we will go about reporting on their learning, because this relates specifically to the classroom-based assessment within those 3 short courses, CSPE, SPHE and PE. The short courses, so essentially just to summarize there, the only way that you can report on these areas in terms of above expectations, exceptional, in line with, or yet to meet expectation, is if you've undertaken one of the short course options, the NCCA design short course and its associated assessment guidelines, or school design short courses using the template and the guidance and the feedback that's provided by the NCCA. So classroom-based assessments, just a few things in it, and this links very closely back to our principles of effective reporting and how the classroom-based assessment is a really meaningful part of teaching and learning and a manageable part of teaching and learning. A particular purpose of the CBA is to facilitate developmental feedback to the student during their undertaking of the classroom-based assessment, but also at the end of the process. And students reflecting on their learning is also a key feature of the CBA. So the classroom-based assessment process has been developed with the principles of effective reporting in mind. The CBA is best seen as an integral part of ongoing assessment and routine classroom practice, an integral part of normal classroom practice. For the wellbeing CBAs, the SLAR process, the 2-hour meeting post-CBA, where we consider and support each other in our judgments of student work, is an integral part of the CBA process. Essentially, a result should not appear on the profile of achievement unless it's been SLAR'd properly. That goes for subjects as well as any of the short courses. And then, of course, the key thing is CBAs are assessed by the student's teacher and reported on to students and parents at the time and on the eventual junior cycle profile of achievement. So just to do that graphically, this school here have chosen to undertake 2 classroom-based assessments. They will be offering students a choice upon which one that they want to report on their junior cycle profile of achievement. But let's say that they want to report on the learning within the gymnastics classroom-based assessment here. That will be reported upon at the time on perhaps the Christmas report in second year. So parents and students get feedback at the time, and it's also displayed on the junior cycle profile of achievement. Okay, so that's just to graphically show how learning is reported at the time and reported then on the profile of achievement also. And just keep in mind, a particular feature of the classroom-based assessment in physical education is that students undertake 2 assessments and then have a choice of which one they can profile on their junior cycle profile of achievement. So what supports teachers in this work? The specification, the assessment guidelines, which contains the features of quality or the assessment criteria by which we make judgments, the SLAR process, and the annotated examples of student work that are in development from the NCCA associated to each of the assessments outlined in it. And of course, if a school chooses to develop their own short course, they would be looking at designing their own classroom-based assessments, their own features of quality in line with the guidance from the NCCA. So that's just to outline the two options there, the NCCA plus also school developed. And now we've looked at the area with the classroom-based assessments. Now we're looking at the other areas of wellbeing. So the 2020 JCPA will have a free text box entitled Other Areas of Wellbeing. If a student did not study the wellbeing short courses, their learning in the area of PE may be recorded here also. So there's the opportunity for schools to profile that. It's a free text box. There's many different ways that schools are doing it, or that will look to do it. But keep in mind that there's existing practice within schools, because there's already a free text box on the junior cycle profile of achievement called Other Areas of Learning. So just like other areas of learning, schools have the opportunity to decide how best to gather this information and how to eventually collate it on the JCPA. And there is potential to actively involve students and their parents in reflection on and discussion of learning progress. And linking very strongly back to Barry Upton's comments earlier, this could be undertaken from the very start of first year, this process of students reflecting on their learning and documenting their learning in physical education. So just to give the existing practice, schools have been engaging with other areas of learning since 2017. So making reference to the teacher with management resource hours or school management would look at how schools are gathering this information and then collating it on the junior cycle profile of achievement. While some schools may choose to retrospectively gather information in transition year from students, others have made it an integral part of teaching and learning. They've undertaken it in third year and potentially before. By doing so, the inclusion of student developed statements within other areas of learning can help students become much more aware themselves as learners. It can actively include student voice and reflection on learning, and it can put the student at the center of the reporting on their learning. So there's a huge way to really activate the student in terms of their reporting here. And this can be done for the purposes of the junior cycle profile of achievement, or it can support ongoing reflection in class, which supports student learning. So examples of student statements. In swimming class during PE, I became more organized and responsible when preparing my kit bag ahead of time. I also became aware of the importance of water safety. So you can see that this is very much couched within physical education learning in swim class, and also the focus on water safety. Gymnastics, different roles and balances, and confidence. So you can see the key skills and the indicators, as well as the learning outcomes within the PE short course specification, really supporting students in developing these statements. And then the last one, during our fitness challenge, I recorded my steps using an app on my phone. I became aware of my physical activity levels and looked at ways to increase this. So there are just a few examples of student statements. Some students might complete it to quite a limited level. And essentially, if we're allowing for student voice to be present on the profile of achievement, that's quite okay. But we can definitely support students in terms of developing these statements to allow us to report on learning in physical education as other areas of wellbeing, or indeed as other areas of learning. Most students are not used to reflecting on their learning. And the document here from the NCCA that I'll be providing a direct link to after can really support students in doing it. So there's the opportunity to develop these skills, and this booklet outlines how that can be done. So we've taken the time there to look not only at the reporting guidelines, but also on how PE might be reported on as part of wellbeing. Now we're going to look directly at two aspects of practice from two particular schools. And what they've done in these schools is that they've looked very closely at allowing students to chart their progress and actively involve them and their parents in reflection on and discussion of their progress. And it's looking at valuing teacher judgment. So I'm just going to move to the sample of the two teachers here that have looked at the new approaches and the new opportunities provided through classroom-based assessment and through other areas of learning. So School F, and again, we'll be asked to just interact with this as it progresses. We have always had rich tasks or culminating activities at the end of units of learning in our school. We're now building on these and using CBAs to provide a record of student achievement. As student reflection forms part of the CBA experience, the student has an opportunity to report on their own personal experience. The award of descriptor and feedback forms part of our written reports to students directly after the CBA in the student journal and school report. So they're reporting upon it at the time and at the end then of the junior cycle experience, because the descriptor is also reported on the student's eventual junior cycle profile of achievement. And this school felt that the SLAR process, or the SLAR meeting, was an opportunity for us as PE teachers to report to each other on the progress of our students also. So there's an opportunity to reflect and to report to each other and actually to share practice. So looking at this particular approach through the lens of the principals, there's the opportunity for students through feedback to reflect on the learning, but very much it values the professional judgment of teachers. We have the opportunity to provide meaningful feedback and make a judgment in line with the features of quality. It clearly communicates student progress and learning and provides information on a broad range of achievement, because the classroom-based assessments are assessment that capture much more than what could be captured in a written pen and paper exam or a timed pen and paper exam. So it allows a much broader range of learning, that which we've really valued in PE, to be reported on. So let's navigate. We just want to engage you after listening to me for so long in responding to that. What could you take from their practice to apply in your own school? So I'm going to ask you to navigate to the Padlet page, and we're going to look at the fourth column. Again, just for anybody that's joined us late, you can access this page via the right-hand side of your screen. If you click on the orange icon at the top, go to shared documents there, and the document that I'm going to ask you is called Please Open. So it's aptly named, and we're going to look at activity 4. And you have the chance to look at what you could take from their practice to apply within your own school. So looking at number 4. So St. Bricken's Wellbeing, these schools are looking at the student strengths and student interests. They are looking at the rich tasks that they are already undertaking across various strands, especially in gymnastics and athletics, and considering allowing students to undertake these. And somebody has, oh sorry, I've responded to that previously. Martina Finneran, report includes student attitude, effort, motivation, and participation, as well as achievements in rich tasks. So she's very much linking the CBAs to the reporting process. I would select a mix of rich tasks from across the strands to gather data for reporting on. I would not formally report on every rich task. I would make sure that I have a balanced reporting across the 4 strands, however. That's great, and I think the fact that students should undertake a minimum of 2 classroom-based assessments can actually really help to that. So, this teacher, I'd probably take most of it. The CBAs seem to give good structure to help with reporting. So that's really good, a good means to provide a descriptor, but also to provide reporting on. So this teacher here is going to build on existing practice and identifies student reflection as a big part of the process. I might just take one more. This teacher will start on work on self-reflection in first year. So again, I'm going to ask you to engage in this in your own time. We might have a more focused webinar focusing on classroom-based assessment at a later time, but I just want to navigate to the fourth, back to my screen here, into our fourth area. So, so I might ask you to navigate back to our PowerPoint presentation. In our school, we saw potential for physical education in the newly designed junior cycle profile of achievement, especially regarding other areas of learning as part of their final summative report. Along with other teachers, including CSP and SPHE, we explored how we could support students in developing their statements. So they're looking at supporting students in terms of the language that they might use in the statements. and they've used the language of the key skills and the wellbeing indicators. So currently, we have several physical education related statements that students can choose as their final statements. Some students choose one of these to be included, while there's scope for students to develop their own statements also. So we're looking to expand this process across first year and second year in the coming year. So this School G are looking very closely at supporting students in developing statements for use in their other areas of learning. I was going to look at this in terms of our Padlet page, but I'm just conscious of the time. So I might ask you to engage with that at another stage, and it was clear that others people had engaged with it just before now. So again, this school have used the key skills and the wellbeing indicators. Just look at the strongest aspect very much. It provides students opportunities to reflection, to reflect on their feedback, and it provides information on a broad range of achievement, and it's sensitive to the self-esteem and well-being of students, because essentially they're reporting on their own learning. It's very individual to them. So we won't look at the opportunity to provide feedback on that using our Padlet, but I would ask you to navigate back to it at a later stage. So if we're undertaking a classroom-based assessment, if we're looking at engaging students more meaningfully in the parent-teacher meeting process, we really have to consider this from the outset. What is our assessment and reporting pathway going to look like? So we're looking at it as part of teaching and learning. So we have some further supports after today. We have examples of reporting in physical education. So again, the 3 documents that are shared with you, and they'll also be sent to you via email after. There are 10 samples of reporting practice. We've looked at just 4 of them today, and we provided feedback on 3 of those. So we worked with a sample of 10 schools. So examples: one particular teacher uses specific teacher feedback based on evidence of learning, self-assessment and reflection. So one teacher has reported on how they do it very meaningfully in class. And there's another teacher uses focused student goal setting and reflection as part of their portfolio. So I think they asked them at the start of the year, knowing what the journey might be over second year or first year or third year, what are the goals that they want? So it actually allows them to anticipate what happens, and they might be much more motivated. And a strong feature in schools is underwritten reports at Christmas and at summertime, or sometimes 3 times throughout the year. Instead of having a drop-down menu, they're using very much a star and a wish or a medal and a mission. So it provides feedback on what they're doing well and what the next steps might be in the written report. So you can navigate to that in your own time and look at the 10 samples of reporting practice. So that's our further support for you to look at in your own time. The second document that's shared with you on the right-hand side of the screen and via email really sets out where this has evolved from. So it gives, it states how it's captured. It was mapped out within the framework for junior cycle, built on within the wellbeing indicators, and further supported through the, built on through the wellbeing guidelines, and further built on through the reporting guidelines. So in terms of interacting with management in your school, this page will provide you with a nice reference point to support the conversation within your school, and it gives you further links to build on this evening's event. It's also got links to key documents, so that could be a really nice go-to page in order to do it. And the second thing here is, within our CPD experiences next year, just like last year, where we have teachers from 6 or 7 or 8 local clusters of schools, we have the ability to share our own practice in a face-to-face environment via second subject CPD and via our new cluster day, which is really looking at how assessment and reporting can support teaching and learning in physical education. Just as a key point here, the second subject CPD is being facilitated for those teachers that have a second teaching subject. So for example, in my context in Glanmire Community College, I taught maths and PE. I might have attended maths as maths CPD during last year's cluster. I have the opportunity in subject CPD. So I would advise you to talk with your school management in order to be registered for that particular CPD. So I hope that's of help to you. So activity 6, and this again might be will be one that we'll just have a quick look to, In terms of reporting on student learning within PE, after all that you've heard tonight, what's the next step that you might undertake within your school? And we'll look very briefly to a number of these comments that are coming in. So it's on the final column, column 6. So the first one here, try to have a structure to reporting in PE. Just going to scroll down to a few of the completed ones. Sorry there, I'm not going to read a few of the shorter completed ones because we've got a mini thesis here, which is really helpful. It'd be really good to read back. This particular school, there are issues. Due to an ongoing issue regarding the time of the SLAR meeting with the department and the union, we've not undertaken a CBA for our students. I hope that was supposed to be held in school time. Will the department support this? And I think a lot of clarity arrived in schools at the start of March. So that would be a really good one to discuss at the school level with your management, because the school have indicated how you are going to facilitate the SLAR meeting there. But thanks for that, and there might be some comments that we could follow up on that as well. Let me just see, I'll just read this last one here. We'll work as a department to enhance opportunity for student reflection. And our final one, we'll meet as a department and try to put some structure into our reporting at a whole department approach. So I definitely look, and I think this is a really strong way to move back from this. This school are definitely looking at this as an opportunity. Because the best way to advocate for physical education within our school context is to have strong assessment and reporting practices, and robust ones that show the valuable learning that happened in our class. So I'm going to go just back to our slides again. That's okay. And we'll draw, oh, sorry, thank you, David and Sinead. A few of the questions and comments have just appeared here. So it's being modified in real time. Thanks, David. Yes, so the question here from the questions pane, where can I access the reporting guidelines and guidelines for the classroom-based assessment in PE? Okay, so thank you, David, has provided the ncca.ie and curriculum online. Oh yes, and all the links to the relevant documents are available in the document there, and you'll see to the right-hand side of your screen there in reporting and wellbeing webinar links. So the links to all those documents are available there. Second question, we are undertaking CBA as part of the short course with our current second years, but not our current third years. Okay, this is an interesting scenario. We phase it in over time. Does this mean that our school enter not reported as a descriptor on their junior cycle profile of achievement? So in terms of their, I presume it's for the current third years. And David has given the answer here. Yes, as your current third years did not undertake the short course and its associated CBA, you enter not reported. You have opportunities on other sections of the JCPA. Okay, so that's great, and thank you, David, for that. Yeah, we could, I think David has just set up the slides here to look back over it. So again, just to give the outline, the profile of achievement again, just to recap maybe on these slides, the profile from next year will include a learning in the area of well-being. All CBAs and all students will have listed as a default. So it will appear on their profile, whether they've undertaken the short course or not, it will appear in that grid and in that box. If a student has studied the short course in physical education and undertaken the CBA, they will have the descriptor awarded on their JCPA by the school. So in relation to that last question, second years, their current second years are doing CBA, so that is how their second years eventually will be reported on it in 2021. But for the current first years, or the current third years, I should say, that have not studied a short course in physical education, they'll have the following descriptor entered on their JCPA by the school, which is not reported. So thank you, David, for lining up those slides again, just to recap on it. And yeah, the only way to profile in this section of the junior cycle profile of achievement is if you've undertaken the short course option. Okay, last question. Hopefully, we are in our second year offering the short course, and there's an assessment culture. Okay, great. There's an assessment culture that gives great clarity, structure, and a focus for students. We have not undertaken SLARs for our most recent work due to school closure. Any advice? Very good question. Thank you for posing it. The question is, thank you, David, has pushed this one onto me. I advise that you contact info@jct.ie and we can check this out further for you. Okay, so I'll get the most up-to-date advice for you on that. we just can't answer it in the context of today's webinar. So thank you, David and Sinead in the background there for lining these up on the presentation. Sometimes I don't even know what's coming myself. So just to recap on the learning intentions, I hope that over the space of our hour and hour 5 minutes here, we've considered how learning is captured and reported upon in physical education. We've recognized the deep connection between teaching, learning, assessment and reporting in PE, and how having a strong assessment and reporting culture and framework can actually enhance what happens in the classroom. And we've looked at 3 of our samples of reporting practice in physical education. So with that, I want to thank the team here, Sinead and David, for their time and for fielding the questions. And I also want to thank you for engaging so late on a Tuesday evening and for giving your time so well. And it was very empowering for us as a facilitation team to see so many PE teachers, over 513, 515, register for tonight's webinar. So with that, I hope that over the coming weeks and months, we just don't know, that you and your families stay safe and well, and we look forward to engaging with you again in the near future. If you do have any follow-up questions or queries, feel free to contact info@jce.ie, and of course the Twitter handle and via our website as well. But I do hope that the 3 documents that are shared tonight will be of value to you as well. So Slán Inis, and thank you very much for your engagement tonight.